The story today is about Padre Pio's very first penitent. How did this all begin? His whole career becoming the ultimate confessor, we could say, of the previous century. He was even comparable to the great Cure d'Ars. But where did it all begin? And you won't believe the strange and very humble beginnings it had. Here on Great Saints, the channel, we seek out inspiration from Padre Pio and beyond to other great saints, mystics, and miracle workers. So do join us in this apostolate, and we do look forward to having you on board. And then, as the great Saint Francis of Assisi used to say, may the Lord give you his peace. In today's story, Padre Pio was ordained in the year 1910, and as we know, he became an incredible confessor over time. But there were very humble beginnings. We're having a look at that right now. His first confession. Now, for a start, when a priest is ordained, often there may be a delay of a couple of months before they're allowed to hear confessions. In Padre Pio's case, it was different. He was delayed much longer. Despite having written to his provincial superior for this permission to hear confessions, it was delayed another 2 years. The alleged reason given were they were worried about Padre Pio's physical health and his peace of soul, his peace of mind. His health was indeed always very precarious, very high fevers, things like that. But was that the true reason, or was there some other reason behind it? Now, his biographer, Father Gabriel Amorth, tells us that in fact it was an irony of his destiny that the most famous confessor of our times needed a full 3 years before receiving the faculty to hear confessions. Absolute irony. At first, there were very few people who even sought out Padre Pio for confession. So he really just had to be content with seeking out people and perhaps giving them a word of spiritual counsel, maybe a little spiritual lesson. That was all. No one was interested in him. It's where he began from. And then something happened. Padre Pio was transferred permanently to St. Giovanni Rotondo. And there he was soon invited by a Father Paulino, please come and help me with the confessions. And that was all that Padre Pio needed to get him going. But still, his first confession didn't go very well. In fact, his first penitent was an old lady with a very feeble voice. And for every single sin that she confessed, the priest, Padre Pio, took the opportunity to make a meal of it, we could say, a long, detailed explanation of the origins of evil, the moral principles behind sin and all of that from the books of theology. And soon, this poor old lady, she had spent the entire morning there on her knees in the confessional, at the end of which her head was spinning. She was more confused than ever. And when she needed to get up, she couldn't because her legs were now frozen. She had to be helped up. And so, at lunchtime, his superior came over to Padre Pio and asked him, how did the confession go this morning? There were a lot of headaches, Padre Pio said. Not very well. And how many confessions did you hear? Well, just one. Just one confession, the superior. He was amazed. Wow, they must have had a mountain of sins to confess. Well, no, not really. Not exactly sins even. Just small little faults. And Father Paulino at that smiled. He is aware of what had happened. Could he have sensed that here before him was the apostle of the confessional, to whom multitudes would soon flock? And so Father Paulino gave him some little suggestions on the necessity for brevity in confession, and just a quick few questions, and then concise advice, nothing more than that. And that was all that souls required. And that advice, I'm sure he used again and again throughout his confessional career. So can you believe it? Such humble beginnings before the floodgates opened, and that is how providence worked in Padre Pio's life. We ask you to join us in this apostolate. It would be tremendous if you help us by liking the video, sharing this video. And of course, if you're not subscribed to our channel, do subscribe and click that reminder bell. And we do then hope to see you next time for the next video.
Sanctum Genitorem, ac posteritatis Gabriel